median selling price for homes nationally has seen the fastest pace of growth year over year since 2006. Does that mean we're in a housing bubble? Let's talk about that and more in this week's segment of Market Watch. Hi everyone, Joshua Barks here, associate broker with Keller Williams Realty Boise and the Barks & Co real estate team. I'm so excited to bring you this week's segment of Market Watch, where we talk about what's happening in the Treasure Valley, Boise area housing market. And this week's a good one because we're diving into the market dynamics for April of 2021. Now, because home prices have been on such a rapid pace, the articles that I'm seeing in the news and everything right now is everyone's asking, are we in a housing bubble? When is the bubble going to burst? When the housing crash is going to come? All of those things. So I wanted to address that in today's video as well, to hopefully let you know what we're actually seeing in the market and give you some real data there. And then I know this is a really long one as well, so I did do the chapters again. So if you want to skip to the portion of the video that you're most interested in, the chapters are going to be below in the timeline. And then for those of you that want to just stick around for my top bullet points on what's going on in the market, here we are. So Ada County so far this year has appreciated by 8%. So new average sales price in Ada County is $461,000. Inventory is down by 67% year over year, but sales are up by 20%. So even though inventory is down significantly, sales are actually up, which is remarkable. Canyon County, 8.7% increase in the average sales price so far this year, with a new average sales price of $325,000. So again, about $10,000 increase over month for both Canyon and Ada. And then inventory in Canyon County is down by just under 60%, so about 58% down inventory year over year, and sales are up in Canyon as well, though not by much, by like 0.5% they're up sales in Canyon County, which is still remarkable that sales could be at least staying pace when inventory is down so significantly. So that's kind of the bullet points for what's going on in Ada and Canyon County's existing housing market. Now let's dive right into those market dynamics. April 2021 market dynamics for both Ada and Canyon County on the existing home sales side. And first off, we're going to start with Ada County, and here's kind of the overview of everything that took place in April of this year, specifically compared to last year. Very interesting to see that even with our very, very limited supply that we have, it's actually really sad to see that we're still less than 300 active homes. We actually have more sales this April than we had last April, which actually makes perfect sense for last April being the bulk of our lockdown here in Idaho and the Boise area. So 549 closed sales last April compared to this April 661. Then we have 769 homes that are pending compared to last April's 704. The incredible part about that is the fact that we had 720 active listings compared to our 235 that we have today. So even with less than half of number of available homes, we are still soaring through the number of sales and pendings, which is incredible and frankly unexpected. With that, you can see it's still a crazy market out there and things are going to be competitive for the near future. As I predicted, with the average sold price in Ada County, we're up 8% since the beginning of the year, since January 1st. So our new average sales price for Ada County is $461,810. Absolutely crazy. I said by the end of May, we'll likely see the average sales price between 5 and 8%. And of course, we're on the high end of that, and we're a month early from what I was predicting. So my prediction for the end of the year is actually still between 12 and 15%, but I'm going to guess we're going to be closer to that 15%. I doubt we'll see another year exactly like we saw last year with that almost 18%, but it is possible if we continue at this pace. I just think this pace with hopefully inventory levels rising and interest rates are supposed to be on the rise as well. I anticipate that'll hinder some of this crazy pace of growth that we're having in Ada County for the average sales price on what's closing. 8% this year. Wow. And then when we're looking at kind of the breakdown of all the price points, you can see the bulk of the sales over the last 12 months are between that 300 and 350 with 1600, and then 400 and 500 with this 1700. And in fact, if you look at 3 to 4, because this was a 100,000 gap, 3 to 4, we actually have just over 3,000 sales there. So that's still really good. Even though the average sales price is that 461 number, this shows us that we still have available homes in Ada County in lower price points as well, just not as many as we used to. Average days on market did drop again. We are now at an average days on market of 13 days overall. And one thing that is also kind of fun to look at, but also a little scary, is if you're looking at just the number of active listings that are on the market and you compile all of the what people are asking for into an average, you get an average sales price of $790,000 and change. So average asking price right now on the market, if you're in the market in Ada County for existing homes, the average asking price is just below $800,000. The average pending listing, marked pending in the MLS, is just under $575. And then, of course, we know that average sold being the $461. So with that in Ada County and what we're seeing overall, things are still competitive and likely won't be slowing down anytime soon, especially if this inventory number doesn't significantly come up. We were hoping that we might see what we saw in pandemic levels of this 720. I know we were complaining last April that we didn't have enough homes on the market to satisfy demand, even though everyone was scared because there was kind of this blip in demand that we don't normally see in April. But here we are today, lowest inventory ever in the last 12 months. And let's see, in fact, we are still lower than where we were in September of last year. So we need more homes, guys. If you have a home to sell and you're thinking about it and you're just worried about where to move, we have options for you because there are so many ways that we can figure it to make that work for you. So you don't have to worry about not finding a place to move because we have available options for you. So one thing that somebody asked last time is, I believe I included the areas of growth, but I didn't create a slide for it. So this time I have a slide, and the top 3 areas of growth for Ada County so far this year. Number 1 coming in at Garden City, which no surprise there. Garden City ranked really high the last couple of months as well, and there's so much activity booming in Garden City right now. 10% so far year to date, and the average sales price in Garden City is just under $425,000. So still a great buy in Garden City. In Star, we're up almost 10%, so 9.5% so far year to date, with an average sales price just below $500,000 of $495,127. It's kind of interesting that you see with all of that new construction that we had in Star and Eagle over the last decade or so. So now a lot of those homes are being counted as existing. So on the resale side, so people that bought in the last 5 to 10 years, and it was a brand new home then when it's coming on the market, because there's so much activity out there. I think that's contributing to this crazy growth that we're seeing in Star and Eagle, because Eagle's right behind Star with a 9.3% year to date. And an average sales price in Eagle is $715,000. Wow, that's just crazy. Eagle does have a lot of those nice riverfront properties with acreage, so I think that does attribute to that a little bit. But those are the top 3 areas for Ada County so far this year. Incredible. Then when we jump into Canyon County and what's going on there, it's kind of a similar story as far as we have, if you look at the market trends, I'll stick to the next slide. If you look at the market trends, we have 303 sales this April compared to last year's 301, and then 367 pending compared to last year's 351. And inventory is, again, less than half of what we had the same time last year. 240 last year, 101 this year, which is interesting because, again, it doesn't seem to be having too much of a hindrance on the number of closed sales and the number of pending sales that we're seeing in the marketplace. Even though this 101 is still less than what we had in September of last year, and in fact, less than what we had in August of last year. Yeah, I think we had, we still need more homes on the market in Canyon County as well, because there isn't enough, and the ones that are coming up are getting snatched up really quickly, because the average sales price, if you'll remember from last month, was about $315, is now $324, so just under $325,000 there, with an 8.7% increase year to date in Canyon County. Last year we ended the year with just under 300,000, and this 20% appreciation in 2020. And what I've predicted for Canyon County this year is we'll likely see something between the 15 to 18% number because of what we're seeing out there in the activity levels there as well. When you're breaking it down again by price point, we have a vast majority of sales happening in this $250 to $299 in the last 12 months, and then we have just over that 1,000 in the 300 to 400 range with this one here. So barely over 1,000. That goes to show that it's still relatively affordable out there, especially with interest rates remaining low, that we have, housing that's under 300,000, because that's incredible. Even though the average sales price is 324, we still have stuff that's under 300. So that's really great. Then the average days on market in Canyon County is actually tighter than what we saw in Ada County, with 12 days on market instead of Ada County's 13. And when you're looking at the average asking price in Canyon County, we're just under 500,000, just under 400,000, an entire $100,000 gap between the what sellers are asking for active, and then what potentially they're getting on the ones that are marked pending, and then finally the ones that have closed over the last 12 months gives us this 325. So if you're in the market, the average asking price right now in Canyon County is $493, which is also just craziness out there everywhere. It's so important to have somebody that knows what they're doing as far as your real estate agent, and if you're getting financing, having a great lender that has your back. So important. In Canyon County, the top 3 areas of growth, we have Melba coming in at number 1 with 23.6% increase so far year to date. Average sales price in Melba being $320,188. So this doesn't include land, just existing homes. One thing I want to note about actually all 3 of these areas is the actual number of sales that have happened over the past 12 months is relatively low compared to several of the top areas in Ada County. So this 23% is, yes, it is up 23%. But the sample size is so small that really anything higher than what we saw is going to have a dramatic impact on that year-to-date percentage. Parma, same thing, up 15.3% so far this year. Average sales price in Parma being $295 to $225, and then Greenleaf coming in third, but still in the double digits at 10.2%. So far year to date, with an average sales price of $296,962. That's fun, being a palindrome with that same number backwards and forwards. So then we're on to the weekly averages of the interest rates, mortgage rates, according to Freddie Mac and their market research. We have the 30-year fixed still hovering just under 3%. And if you look at the blue line, which is the 30-year fixed, you saw we had our lowest ever back in January, and then it's kind of upticked and hit kind of a a peak, if you were, in the middle to end of March at that, 3.2 just about. And then now we're back down to 3%. So what experts have been saying is that interest rates are still going to be on the rise, though the Fed has indicated multiple times that they are not going to be raising the rates significantly. So mortgage rates closely follow what happens to the Fed rate oftentimes. And generally, when a market is doing better, when we have the economy is strong, interest rates tend to go up. And so that's part of the reason why experts have been predicting that interest rates are going to continue to rise, myself included, because the economic recovery has been really great for most parts of the country. So that 3% will likely be 3.25%, maybe up to 3.5% by the end of the year is my guess. I've been saying 3.5% by the end of the year, but we were expecting it to continue to rise at this kind of aggressive pace that we were seeing in early March. And they've kind of just stayed at 3%, which is fantastic if you're a seller or just a homeowner in general, and you missed the boat on refis last year when we were at 2.5% and what have you, because it's still a great time to refinance, lock in that low rate. And as a buyer, this actually really helps because prices are vastly appreciating. We have the low interest rates are able to help get you more home for your dollar, because if interest rates go up and prices continue to rise, it's just going to get harder and harder for those first-time buyers. When the most question I get is this: when is the best time to buy or sell? And really, it comes down to asking yourself these two questions. Do you have a good enough reason to move? Because the market is challenging right now if you're a buyer. And if you don't have a good enough reason to move, that can be fun. Like, why would you do that? Just because? Why would you move just because, really? And maybe your family's growing, or maybe you found out that your job is now working from home full time. So your reason to move is you need space for that home office. You need space for your moving family, or maybe your house is too big and you really need something that's going to be lower maintenance, downsizing, and things like that. So stuff like that, like those are good reasons to move. And if you have something that's personally a good reason for you to move, it might be a great time to buy or sell. They say that trying to time the market is a fool's errand, because you never know when you're at the bottom and you never know when you're at the top until it's already happened. So as long as you're making good decisions for you and your family, as far as like moving when you want to, when you need to, then you're going to be fine. And then secondly, this kind of couples up with trying to time the market, is can you afford it? And the funny part with that is you really don't know until you sit down with a real estate professional and sit down with a lender and talk about what your finances are. And maybe in some cases you need to meet with a tax advisor and a financial planner on other things to come up with to make sure that, maybe you bought a home like last year. So you need to figure out what your capital gains consequences are and things like that. So it's just really important to reach out to a professional that's local in the industry that you're looking to buy or sell in, because you might find that when you didn't think it was a good time to buy or sell, it's actually the perfect time. Or you might find out that, hey, we need to wait a couple months or what have you. Everyone's situation is so unique. So it's important to just get answers. My number is 208-914-1095. I'm happy to help answer any questions that anybody has, whether it's regarding when is a good time for them, or if it's about the market or anything real estate related. That's just what we're here for. So that's kind of what we have. Feel free to email me as well. You can see my emails right here on the screen, or visit our website. Our website has lots of great information. You can also read reviews from past clients of ours and just kind of learn who we are and see what we have to offer for you. Okay, so that's kind of a wrap on what we have going on in April's market dynamics for 2021. Okay, so there you have it. That's what's going on in Ada County and Canyon County's existing home sales for April of 2021 compared to what we saw last April, the bulk of our lockdown. And now I want to get into talking about really the question I get even more often than when is a good time to buy or sell, is are we in a housing bubble? There are so many articles out there, so much misinformation, especially on YouTube and things like that, saying, oh, the housing market's going to crash, everything's going to fall apart, wait to buy because we're in a bubble. And I'm not saying that for you specifically, you need to buy now or sell now or what have you, because it is such an individual choice. I can't stress that enough. I don't want to give you a blanket statement to say, now is the perfect time to sell, now is the perfect time to buy, because it might not be for you specifically, or it might be even if you didn't think it was, because you won't know what you don't know until you actually sit down with a lender, if you're getting financing, which most people are, and sit down with a real estate professional like myself. Just give us a call, send us an email, set up a time. We can talk about what your specific situation is, your specific goals, and just go from there, because you might learn that now is the perfect time for you to buy or sell or both. Or you might find out that now is not the right time for you because of X, Y, Z. There's so many factors, because it is such an individual choice, that it's just important to sit down with somebody that knows what's happening in the market and can tell you where you're at currently, and then figure out how to get where you want to go. And so that's something I just can't stress enough, that it's such an individual decision on whether or not right now is a good time for you to buy and sell. So now that I have that out of the way, let's talk about the housing bubble. The US housing market nationally and locally has been on such a hot streak. Double-digit gains in home prices, bidding wars, and just buyer demand that's going out of control with interest rates being really low. And so because of all of that, what I'm seeing in the news, and like I said, misinformation on YouTube, is that, oh, we're in a housing bubble, everything's going to crash, wait to buy, wait to sell, or sell now, wait to buy, and what have you. And really, if you're looking at following what's happening nationally and talking to really just the chief economists for both the National Association of Realtors and these big banks, like people that know way more than me on what's happening in the housing market, all of them are saying this is not a bubble. It's simply a lack of supply. In fact, so we've seen the median selling price appreciate by $35,000 year over year, which is the fastest growth that we've seen since 2006, which is another reason why we're seeing people saying, oh, this is a bubble, it's just like 2008. And here I want to talk about why now is different than what we saw in 2008. And again, it's simply a lack of supply for the demand that we have. In fact, in 2007, there were 4 million homes available nationally. 4 million on the market available in 2007, so prior to the crash in 2008. At the end of March of this year, there were 1.07 million homes. 1 million compared to 4 million. A 3 million deficit of available homes. So that shows you that nationally, including locally, we are severely undersupplied for what we saw back then. So the fears of, oh gosh, there's the housing bubble, all this wave of houses are going to be on the market, and prices are just going to plummet. That's not going to happen. At least not anytime soon. I'm not saying never, because that would just be idiotic to say that prices will never go down, this will be the lowest they'll ever be. Because if you look historically, that's not really what happens. Technically, markets being cyclical, every 7 to 10 years, we see a cycle, a new cycle. Well, one of the things with supply right now and with lending practices is we may have seen that cycle when COVID hit, because we did have a recession and we're on a recovery track. So maybe that blip that we saw was our 7 to 10 year blip. I'm not saying for 100% certainty that was, because it's something outside of our control, but that's really the only thing that'll take to crash our market, is something that crashes the economy. Stock market crashes, another different global catastrophe that causes, it's just something that so many big things would have to happen in order to crash the housing market that I don't see that happening anytime soon. That's just basically the long and short of it. Now, the stock market does appear to be potentially overinflated right now, and that's kind of what's going on as well, with people talking about, oh, well, the housing market will crash. Well, here's what I have to say, stock market related to housing market. The upper end, so those maybe 800,000 and up, at least here locally, will likely see a softening when that happens, because most of the people in those price points are invested in the stock market, because oftentimes if you're in that price point, you have the extra funds to put into things like the stock market and investments. Now, first timers, entry-level homes and mid-level homes, probably not going to be affected too much by the stock market, because those people generally don't have a lot of extra funds in the stock market. And so as long as they can still, buy and sell their home, things will still move. And the entry level, we have so many people that are entering into that golden age of home buying. What we see, I think it's like 30 years old is the age that most people buy their first home by on a national scale or something like that. I don't remember, I don't have the article right in front of me, but so many people are entering into that age. At the same time, people are trying to retire and downsize and whatnot. So we have that, and then we have investors right now snapping up all those properties. So especially the entry level area, that's likely not going to be affected for the foreseeable future, at least the next 12 to 24 months. Now, when we're talking about what's happening locally compared to nationally as well, we have so much demand, especially from out of state, or out of area, I should say, coming in, that is, prompting prices to continue to appreciate. Because if you have less supply and more demand, prices go up. That's just basic economics. If supply comes up and demand goes down, then prices will begin to soften, but only when that happens. And people that are moving here from out of area, as long as they're still able to sell their home and move here, that is going to continue to happen with demand being up. Now, we have to wait for those markets to soften before ours will see something like that here locally. And we don't see that happening for at least another 12 to 24 months, if that, because with COVID, ironically, with the boost of telecommuting, we have more people moving out of higher priced areas into lower priced areas like ours. Nationally, we are seeing that all over the place, where people are able to still get their salary, say in California, and live somewhere that's cheaper and live on their California salary just because they can telecommute now. And so we're likely going to continue to see that happening here locally for a while. And that 4 million available homes that we had in 2007 compared to the 1 million we have now, we would need so many more homes to hit the market. And when we're talking about what 2006 was like compared to now and why it's different, another big thing is just lending practices. Lending practices have gotten so much stricter since the financial crisis of 2008. And in fact, with inventory remaining low, credit requirements are still really tight, and again, buyers are more sensible. A lot of the people that are in the real estate market right now experienced 2008, and they don't want that to happen again. And so they're not using their house as a piggy bank and going and buying boats and motorcycles and things that depreciate in value. They're refinancing on their house or getting a home equity line of credit and actually remodeling the kitchen, or having home projects that actually appreciate their home's value. So they're putting money into an appreciating asset rather than a depreciating one. And then the biggest loan product back then was the ARM, or adjustable rate mortgage. And we're seeing so few of those in the marketplace, or interest only payments where, I can afford the payment at this, just interest only, but if it goes up any more than that, then that's when we have trouble. Or my favorite, stated income loans, where people didn't have to prove that they were making anything. They just said, I make $300,000. And as long as their credit was good, they got a loan. Just by simply saying they make $300,000. Stated income loans. I don't know why that was ever a thing, but we're not seeing that now. There are so many other stopgaps that are proving that people have to have the assets in order to make the payments. And then, so apart from lending practices being much tighter and buyers being more sensible, we also have interest rates being at a great place, propping affordability, and like I said, buyers being more sensible with what they can afford, but also equity. So many people that own property right now have seen such a huge increase in equity. In fact, in 2008, so many people were underwater that instead of making their mortgage payment on this house that was losing money day after day after day, they just walked away from it and went into foreclosure. And right now, who would do that? Because almost everyone's house is appreciating in value. So they're over water. And so say they can't make the mortgage payment. Rather than going into foreclosure, what they're likely going to do is just raise their hand and sell their house, pay off the lender, and likely make some money on that, have extra, even though they couldn't afford their mortgage payment. They probably won't buy again, because they don't have a job or whatever, but the house will just go for sale. It won't be a foreclosure. And when moratoriums end, because that's what we're hearing a lot of, when the moratorium ends, we're just going to get this huge wave of foreclosures. And again, people are likely just going to raise their hand, sell their house. And like I said, we would need inventory to just absolutely skyrocket. And the facts are there. If you look at how many people took advantage of the moratorium when COVID hit last year, compared to, and the people going off, and compared to the people that need it now, that number is declining every day and every month. So we're seeing so many people that took advantage of not needing to make their mortgage payment last year as a backup plan, not because they needed to, but because they wanted to make sure that they were protected. And once they realized that their job is fine or whatever, then they started resuming making those payments. And the people that need it are still on it or have applied for it or what have you. And those people, when the moratorium ends, those people will likely need to sell, yes. But we're not going to see this huge wave of foreclosures because the vast majority of people that are on that moratorium took it as a backup plan. And I actually know people personally that took it as a backup plan, and then instead of making their mortgage payment, they put that money towards a house remodel. They remodeled the kitchen. They remodeled this room. They updated the bathroom, whatever. And so they actually made their asset worth more as well. So even more equity there. And when we're talking about the gains in equity as well, so many people that have bought just over the last couple of years have made so much equity. Like, say you bought a house 2 years ago, 2019 or whatever, you could probably sell it today and make $100,000 profit. I mean, depending on what you've done with it and all of those things, but that's happening right now. And so if you make that $100,000 profit, you could roll that over into, your down payment on a new place and actually buy something that works better for you. Maybe it has the home office that you need. Maybe it has space for the kids that you're starting to have, or whatever it may be. Now is just a good time for so many people to take advantage of that and lock in that low interest rate. Now, again, when we're talking about equity and people walking away, even if we have significantly more homes come on the market, prices are going to continue to appreciate because demand is higher than it's ever been as well. So we would need demand to just absolutely plummet and inventory to absolutely skyrocket. So worst case scenario, for the next 12 to 24 months, we might see a balance of the market finally. I would love if that would happen. And so the balance of the market with that, it's just this is not the same as what we saw in 2006, is the long and short of it. And I know there's a lot of information here, and I feel like I'm kind of being a rambling mess. So if you want to talk more about why this is really not a housing bubble, at least not like we saw in 2006, 2008, maybe prices will come down. I hope they do eventually by a little bit. But what my prediction is, not only will we see 15% appreciation by the end of the year for Ada County, we're likely going to see at least 10% next year. And then beyond that, it's kind of hearsay on what's happening on markets that really affect ours because people are moving from out of area. So we would need that to happen, and then we would need inventory to come up, and then people to stop buying houses. So if interest rates, mortgage rates, interest rates skyrocket and inventory comes up significantly and demand just plummets, then sure, prices will come down. But we're gonna see prices appreciate and then plateau and then probably appreciate again. That's what my best guess, based on all of the studies that I've read, all of the articles, and all of the graphs and charts. It's way too much to include in this video. We're not in a housing bubble. We're not there. Now, I hope I'm wrong. And if you're one of those people that's like, no, I'm waiting on the sidelines and I'm just gonna save money and then I'm gonna have the cash when the housing market crashes. Well, I hope when that happens, if that happens, that interest rates are still really good. And I hope that, that's a great move for you. But if you can afford it right now, people, like I've said, people have been saying it's a housing bubble for the last 5 years. And if you bought in the last 2 to 5 years and you're trying to just turn around and sell it right now, you're making a profit. 95% of the time you're making a profit. There'd have to be some kind of catastrophe with your specific property in order to not make a profit if you bought in the last 2 to 5 years. Now, 5 years ago, people were saying that was the top, we're in a bubble, I'm just gonna wait. And you're missing out on all of that. In fact, I helped some people last year that bought a house that wanted to wait. And I said, now I wouldn't wait if I were you. As long as everything else makes sense for you, my recommendation is to buy now, if you can. And so that's what we did. We fought and we bought something. And here's the fun part that's not so fun. If they would have waited until now to buy a house, they would not be able to afford what they bought. Yeah, plain and simple. What they bought, they no longer are able to afford today compared to when they bought it last year. So what is the cost of waiting for you and your family? Like I said, it's not the right time to buy or sell for everybody, but it might be for you, and you don't know what you don't know until you talk to a real estate professional. You talk to your lender, and maybe if you bought in the last couple of years, you need to talk to a financial planner and a tax advisor on capital gains and things like that. But you won't know until you first give me a call, set up that consultation, and see what your options are, and just go from there. Okay, so off my soapbox about the housing bubble. I know this was much longer than I planned, so if you have any questions, just reach out. I'm happy to help. Leave it in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And next week it's going to be much shorter because we're just covering the housing market on a week-over-week basis. So everyone have a fantastic Mother's Day weekend, and I hope to see you all next week. Thanks.